Coming at you straight from the fantasy armchair, this is the Fantasy Tyrant.
Hey there, fellow fantasy football freaks. It's me, the Tyrant, the Ty Guy, Ty, back with another video for you. Sorry it's a little bit late. Hey, I'm a one-man show here. You know, it's the first week, trying to work out the kinks, give me a break. Now, I'll always have the waiver wire and buy and sells on time, so don't you worry about that. But hopefully next week, I'll have my Wednesday show on Wednesday. But for now, you get what you get, and you get it when you get it. Just hit the subscribe button, and then you'll always know when this comes out. I hope you liked the first video I did this week. If you haven't seen it yet, at the end of this one, I think there'll be like a little box that you can click on, some fucking thing, I don't know. I'll try to figure it out. But enough shameless self-promotion. Let's get on with the Wednesday show on a Thursday. And here's your sit-start segment that you can actually use, because I don't tell you to start studs. Start your studs? No shit. But here you go. It's time for Bitches and Bumps. Benches and Bumps. Bitches and Bumps. If you didn't know, this is the segment where I tell you which players you should bump up to your starting lineup and which players you should sit on your bench. And my QB bump for this week is Carson Wentz, who might be ineligible for this segment pretty soon because he's hitting 20 plus fantasy points each week. And this week, he may be playing for first place in their division, sadly. Shouldn't be something we're saying about a 2-win team in week 8. Sweet lord, the NFC East sucks right at horse anus. And now that I think about it, this might be one of those perfect setups where he's supposed to have this great game and he ends up throwing out a fucking stinker. Just because the fantasy gods want to piss in our cereal? Yeah, you know the drill. I hope not, because this matchup is good. So feel confident giving Wentz the bump up this week. Other QBs I'm looking to bump, I actually thought about putting Herbert in this conversation, but he is facing Denver's defense, and we don't know quite if he's matchup proof yet, but we'll see. However, his competition for Rookie of the Year, Joe Burrow, has a tasty matchup against the Titans, who are giving up over 22 fantasy points a game to QBs this season. Burrow has a full arsenal of pass catchers at his disposal, so I expect him to continue killing it in this matchup. Bump him up as a starter this week. And I can't believe I'm saying we should bump up Jimmy G this week. The dude gives me serious heart palpitations watching him QB my fucking 49ers with reckless abandon. But this is against Seattle, a division rival, and probably the softest pass defense in the league. He's gonna keep Kittle and our rookie sensation Brandon Ayuk well fed this week. Bump him up and then put him away till God knows when. And Baker Mayfield has one more great week before he's primed to sell. The Raiders have given up the league worst 32.8 fantasy points per week to opposing QBs over the past 3 weeks, and while I don't think he's going to score 5 touchdowns like he did last week, it's not outside the realm of possibility, because the Raiders are total dick waste at defending the pass. So give Baker the bump this week. Now for the quarterbacks you want to put on the pine, we're looking at my bench of the week, Drew Brees. Hey, he's a great quarterback, but his wide receivers have dwindled down to shit and liquid shit. And this week he draws the top defense against quarterbacks in fantasy, a little team from Chicago known as the Bears. They're only allowing an average of 13 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. And not one QB has reached 20 points against them this year. Not Stafford, not Ryan, not Tom Brady, none of them. I don't like where this is going. You better find another option and put Drew Brees on your bench. Other QBs to bench this week, Jared Goff goes to Miami to a Dolphins D that has allowed only 7 fantasy points per game over the last 3 weeks to QBs and allowed the 11th fewest points to QBs for the season. His production is unpredictable, so he could go off just for the fun of making me look like an ass clown with a thumb in his bum. But likely he's just gonna blow, so leave Goff on your bench! Stafford hasn't done shit in good matchups, bad matchups, any matchups, and Indy's D is legit. QBs are only averaging 13.4 fantasy points per game against the Colts, and Stafford can't even produce a usable fantasy day in a gimme matchup. Of course, that means he'll go off this week, right? Not this season, not this game. Put Stafford on your bench! Matt Ryan tonight? No thanks. I hate starting QBs on a Thursday night. Plus, while the Panthers can be had at the running back position, not so much from the QB position. Todd Gurley should have a good game, Matty Ice won't. Put him on your bench! And while we're talking about Gurley, I'm making him my bump of the week at running back. Like I said on the Tuesday show, this is going to be a good polish for Todd Gurley. Just to shine him up, get him shiny, so you can sell him next week. Get him in there against the Panthers tonight and hope he puts up RB1 numbers. Then sell him before his game in Denver. The Panthers are giving up 28 fantasy points per week to running backs, so hey, give Gurley that big bump. Fuck what the other analysts say. This is my show, and I say give CH the bump up this week.
Other running backs I'm bumping up to starter this week? Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't buy the Lev Bell revenge game narrative. Edwards-Helaire is their guy. Lev is insurance and a little help to rest Clyde, but this is his backfield, make no mistake. The Jets are rat shit on both sides of the ball, so that's going to help opposing running backs. Kareem Hunt is about to be an RB1 going forward, and this week will give him the jump start he needs. The Raiders defense is allowing 1.33 rushing touchdowns per game to running backs, the worst in the league, but the best for Hunt owners, so give him the bump and watch him score big for your squad. Jonathan Taylor had a nice rest in his bye week, but he's ready to continue his high-floor RB2 production. Against Detroit's weak sauce D, look for Taylor to put up his first 20-plus point game of the season. Give him the bump and watch those points rain.
As for running back benches, here's a name for you. How about Zeke Elliott? Oh my gosh, he didn't? No, he didn't, did he? Yeah, you're damn right I did. I'll tell you why. With DiNucci at the helm for the Cowboys, everyone's fantasy points are going to suffer. And the Phillies D is no joke. Not one 20-point fantasy day allowed for any running backs this season. Zeke may be the saddest fantasy story of the year. All that wasted talent because of injuries to other people. I feel sorry to have to say this, but if you've picked up some good running back options off the waiver wire last few weeks, you might want to go with them and put Zeke on your bench.
Other running backs I'm benching this week? David Montgomery sucks. End of analysis. Okay, want more? The Bears' defense dictates the pace of the games they're in. Slow, methodical, and boring. Even in a good matchup, that doesn't bode well for Montgomery, who isn't explosive by any means. He's only eclipsed 20 fantasy points once, and barely. And this week, the Bears will face the Saints, who can stop the run. David Montgomery barely runs anyway, more like a sluggish trot. So instead of trotting him out there, better leave Montgomery on your bench. DeAndre Swift has been a solid running back too this season, but if you have other options this week, it might be better to sit Swift against a stout Colts D, who's only allowing 16.5 fantasy points per game at the running back position. Only Kareem Hunt has eclipsed 15 points against them. Matthew Stafford can't seem to open that offense enough for Swift to overcome a tough defense like that, so perhaps this is the week you should put him on your bench. And until we have more clarity from Anthony Lynn on who the lead back will be in place of Eckler for the Chargers, we can't start either Justin Jackson or Josh Kelly, especially against a Denver defense that ranks third against the run. At 7.5 points apiece the way Lynn's running things, I'm sure you have better options, so leave the Chargers running backs on your bench.
My wide receiver bump up for this week is Jarvis Landry, because with Odell Beckham Jr. going out with injury, those targets, yeah, they're going to get spread around, but a bulk of them are going to go to the man I call the poor man's OBJ, Jarvis Landry. He's been a low-end wide receiver 3 so far this year, at best, but this week, he's going to get bumped up to wide receiver 2 status. Raiders rank in the bottom 10 against running backs with an average of 28.6 fantasy points allowed to the position. Rashad Higgins and Harrison Bryant will be competing for those targets as well, but I think Landry will get the lion's share, so make sure he gets a bump up to your starting lineup this week.
Other wide receivers I'm giving the bump, Brandon Ayuk. His athletic ability speaks for itself, but with Deebo Samuel out for a bit, he'll step in as the number 2 target for Jimmy G behind Kittle. Hopefully you picked him up off waivers as I suggested on Tuesday's show, because he gets to play on the fantasy point playground in Seattle this week. The Seahawks are the most generous defense for opposing pass catchers, allowing a league-worst 48.5 fantasy points per game to wideouts this season. The Sea Chickens DBs are going to get plucked. Bump Brandon up. And what can I say about T. Higgins other than look at the production he's put up this season as a rookie on a team loaded with weapons. He's challenging Tyler Boyd for the top spot on the team and might take that next step this week against the 4th weakest defense against wideouts this year. The Titans have allowed 43.6 fantasy points per game at the position over the last 3 weeks, and I don't see that getting any better this week. Joe Burrow is going to feast, and his go-to guy will feast right along with him. So give Higgins the bump to start it this week.
And this week, I'm benching Devontae Parker. Listen, I know Tua is going to be fine, but this is a real bad week for him to start off against the Rams. That is a tough matchup to start your career off with. And Parker is bound to get the Jalen Ramsey shadow treatment. So I see a down game for him. I mean, Ramsey hasn't allowed a top 20 wide receiver all season. Parker's also a little banged up, and while we expect him to play, I would temper my expectations for him this week. Unless bye-week blues have you desperate, I'd put Parker on your bench.
Other wide receivers I'm benching this week. Chase Claypool has been a sensation this season, but everyone is healthy again for the Steelers, so Chase gets knocked back down to number 3 at best in the pecking order. And considering the matchup against the Ravens' top 10 defense, you should look elsewhere this week if you can. If you don't want your name to be mud, leave Claypool on your bench. And Darius Slayton has played alright this season, but Sterling Shepard is back and has swiftly taken back his top spot among pass catchers on the Giants. And since Danny Dimes has only been putting up loose change this season, anyone but number 1 belongs on the pine, especially against a top 5 defense against wide receivers like Tampa Bay. So it's a good week to leave Darius Slayton on your bench.
And finally, we come to tight ends, and this week I give my biggest bump to Jimmy Graham. I think this season people forgot what he could do, and now he's starting to remind us. He's been targeted at least 5 times in all games but 1 this season, and even though he hasn't had the greatest week the last couple weeks, I can see him bouncing back here against the Saints. And why is that? Because when it comes to tight ends, the Saints absolutely suck an Otter's nuts. They rank second worst at the position, giving up an average about 15.5 fantasy points to tight ends each week. So give him the bump, and you might see some more flashes of the old Jimmy Graham. I bet he gets in the end zone this week. Just watch.
Other tight ends I'm bumping up this week. Unless Goddard gets fast-tracked to start Sunday, Richard Rodgers will be the tight end weapon of choice for Wentz. Filling in for Goddard and Ertz, Rodgers snagged 6 of 8 targets for 85 yards last week, and I think he had a touchdown called back or something like that. Hey now, I can't afford my own fact-checkers like Mark Zuckerberg, so give me a break. This week, he gets to join in on the fantasy point fiesta against Dallas, so bump him up. And you thought last week was a one-off fluke for Harrison Bryant? Not you.
Oh, fucking...
And he just might against the Raiders' smelly-ass defense. They love the second coming of Gary Barnidge in Cleveland. Did you all seriously forget about this guy? Bump him up and look like a genius for once this week.
Now let's talk about who to bench. Hunter Henry should be balling out, just like all the other Chargers in the Herbert era. But I think that knee injury did some permanent damage, and he's lost a step. He's not reaching his full potential. Plus, this week, he's got a terrible matchup against the Denver Broncos. If this is anything but a low-scoring affair, it's not going to be thanks to Hunter Henry. Put him on your bench!
Other tight ends I'm benching, Trey Burton might be taking over the number 1 spot at tight end for the Colts, and Rivers likes his tight ends. But this week, our expectations should be a little more conservative. The Lions are top 5 against tight end, allowing only 6 fantasy points per game at the position, and Trey is splitting those reps to 2 other tight ends. 2 points isn't going to be getting the job done, so put Burton on your bench and sit all Cowboys pass catchers until further notice, and that includes Dalton Schultz. If you need me to explain why, you aren't paying attention. Maybe you shouldn't play fantasy football. Try playing with a cup and ball instead, that might be more your pace. Either way, put Schultz on your bench!
Well, that's it for benches and bumps, but let me give you some defenses that you could stream for the week.
I like the Bolts against the Broncos. No matter who they put in at QB, the Broncos suck floppy donkey dick. Looks like it's Locke's week this week, though, and he's going to need to throw to catch up to Herbert, which means a lot of chances for picks and defensive touchdowns. So fire up the Chargers D this week. I also like the Colts taking on the weak-ass kittens of Detroit. Stafford can't put up a good game to save his life, and the Colts D has been solid as you'll find this season. Start him with confidence. And the Saints D can be sneaky good. Marshawn Lattimore will be a thorn in Allen Robinson's side, so that will leave Nick Foles with Jimmy Graham to throw to, and, well, that's great for Jimmy. It's not great for the team. Start up the Saints this week.
What, you still want more? You greedy fucks. Alright, for those of you in deep leagues, I'm going to be doing the deep dives every week where I give you 5 deep dives, and here we go.
Derek Carr hasn't shit the bed like he does every year. It's coming, but I think he escapes it this week with a good matchup against the Browns. Take Carr out for a spin this week before you put him in the garage for the rest of the season. LaMichael Pirine has been on fantasy analyst tongue since the beginning of the season. It could finally be his time to shine. Lev Bell is gone. Plus, KC can actually be beat on the ground if the defense slows the game down. Might be worth a shot for the rookie this week. Rashad Higgins is the next man up after Odell went down in Cleveland. He's played well at times in his career, but he finally gets the time to shine in a delicious matchup against the Raiders D. I smell a breakout, don't you? The Niners are down Deebo Samuel, and while Kittle and Ayuk will see a lot of work, don't sleep on Kendrick Bourne. Call it a hunch, but I just get this feeling that he steals a TD from those guys this week. Sneaky DFS tournament play right here. And finally, you want to go dangerously deep? How about Cole Kmet, tight end for the Bears? Jimmy Graham is the guy in that spot for Chicago, sure. But that's how shitty the fucking Saints have been against tight ends. Even Kmet, who's seen his target steadily increase throughout the season, could have a big game against them. Only the bullshit there, but I'm telling you, reports are they like this kid in Chicago and want to give him every opportunity to succeed. This is a good week to do it.
So there it is, folks. My first week of shows is complete. Hopefully it was able to help you. If you need some more help, go ahead and leave me questions there in the comments below. I'll answer as many as I can. I usually get to all of them, so feel free. You can also leave me some comments, suggestions, whatever. Or you can just call me an asshole if you want. I don't give a fuck. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Come back next Tuesday, and I'll have a brand new show for you where we'll go over the buy and sells for week 9. And of course, then on Wednesday, hopefully, we'll have the benches and bumps and deep dives again. Good luck to you all this week, unless you're an opponent of mine, in which case, fuck off. But I'll see you all next week, and hopefully your friends too. Let them know. As the Tyrant will be giving you more information that you can use to beat everyone's ass in your league. Until then, peace. I'm out.